Hello, Miss Emily here to tell you about a fun book that I just finished reading. I just finished reading the graphic novel The City on the Other Side by Margaret Scott and illustrated by Robin Robinson. The book is about a young high society girl who suddenly finds herself thrust into the middle of a deadly fairy war in a world she never even knew existed. And she finds that she's a lot more important than she ever could have imagined. Isabel is an only child living with her mother and household staff in San Francisco a few years after the San Francisco earthquake. She lives a sheltered life, only allowed to venture out into the city with the butler, Charles, to go to her tutors. It's her mother's last day at home before heading off to Europe for the summer, and Isabel is going to live with her father in the country who she barely remembers, if at all. When she arrives at her father's, she is quickly left on her own again as her father is a sculptor and has a deadline to meet. Isabel is disappointed to find that he has barely even prepared for her visit, not even getting around to cleaning out her room. After following a stray cat into the woods, she finds some enjoyment by starting to take care of some plants that she finds, providing more light to the ones who need it and giving shade to the mushrooms. Later that night, hearing a sound and thinking the cat is back, Isabel ventures out into the dark woods. Instead of the cat, though, she finds an injured fairy. While trying to find out how hurt the fairy is, she accidentally touches a necklace that the fairy is wearing and suddenly finds herself in a world that is similar but very different from her own. Here she meets the two warring fairy factions, the Seelies and the Unseelies. The Seelies were a bright and shining fairies who blessed plants, birds, and humans. The Unseelies blessed the worm, stone, and crumbling log. The two fairy kingdoms lived for many years in peace until Prince Koskar came to be the ruler of the Unseelies. The necklace was taken from him, and he is determined to find it and get it back, even at the cost of the two kingdoms and many fairy lives. The Seelies are falling to the Unseelies as their princess, who has most of their power, has gone missing. King Rohish, her father, is trying to protect his people and sends his messenger Pista off with a powerful item to give to one of his soldiers, Miori. After Pista's departure, Rohish surrenders to Koskar with the condition that none of his people are harmed. Koskar only promises to honor that if his item is found. Pista is the fairy that Isabel finds, and they are quickly surrounded by the Unseelies trying to get the necklace. They escape, and Isabel teams up with a fairy named Button to find the princess and give the necklace to her to save the Seelies. While searching for the princess and dodging Unseelies, Button and Isabel meet the thief Benji, another human in the fairy world. They form an uneasy alliance to find the princess and end the war. Along the way, Isabel learns that even though she's never known about the fairy world before, their world and hers are connected. They are separated by magic called the Veil, but what happens in one world affects the other. It turns out that the San Francisco earthquake was caused by Koskar's fear and anger. The story continues both in the human San Francisco and the fairy version, with unexpected friendships formed and two forgotten kids realize that they are more cared for than they ever imagined. What I really liked about this book was the diversity presented in the humans. Isabel's mother speaks to Isabel using Spanish phrases. While Benji and Isabel are running through the human San Francisco, a lady yells at them in Cantonese. Benji talks about how diverse San Francisco is and that he is actually Filipino. Translations of the Spanish are included right in the frame, and even though the Cantonese woman's speech is written in English, there are special indicators representing that her words are being translated from Cantonese. The other thing I liked about the book is that even though it's a work of fiction, the Button character talks about the research that went into writing the book at the end. He gives a brief but informative history of San Francisco and the earthquake, as well as the various mythologies that the fairies are all based on. If you're interested in finding out the rest of the story, you can find The City on the Other Side in the graphic novel section in the children's room. It's recommended for grades 4 through 7. Hope you're interested. Bye.